Hi, everybody. I know several of you have contacted me either through the instructor virtual office or via email, even text message, with some questions about your case study assignment that was posted this week in Module 3. So I thought I would do a quick directions video for you that kind of walks you through the assignment and what's expected, so that hopefully this will answer any questions that you might have about it. So I'm going to do a screen share and walk you through it, so hopefully this will answer your questions and concerns. So here we go. Okay, so the first thing that we're actually going to look at is here is the Module 3. You can see we're in EDL 707, Week 3, Module 3. We have our descriptor for the week here, as well as our overview and objectives. Here's your articles and online readings you need to do. You have a discussion forum due this week as well that's posted right here. And then, of course, you also have the case study. So I'm going to click on this case study link. And this is what you should see now. Everything that you can possibly need to complete this assignment is posted for you here. So just real quickly, you have, I'm going to start kind of in the middle, you have 7 different tools that you can use that's going to help you to complete your template as well as your PowerPoint. So it goes from tool 1A all the way through tool 7A, and then back up here, tool 6B and 7B available to you. In addition, you have a data analysis planning guide that you may find helpful as a resource document. You have a PDF on data analysis concepts as well as an introduction that you need to read that will provide good foundational and background information. Then you have the actual template that you will complete as well as the directions. You have here a zip folder that contains all of these same attachments. It's just some of you are working on Apple computers, or maybe you're in a situation you don't have great bandwidth, so sometimes it's easier for you to access a zip file than the actual document. So I did load those in there for you. And then you have as well a set of data that if you don't have data available to you, you can pull this up and use that instead. And then finally an article about setting quantitative and qualitative goals and doing analysis in those 2 arenas. So that's what you have here. But we're going to look first actually at the directions. So I went ahead and pulled them up just for the sake of time. So let me get to that for you. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute to make sure that you guys can see this. And here we go. All right, so here is what has been posted in Moodle for you. But just to kind of walk through it, it talks about read the article, which we just showed you. There are 2 sets of data posted. Even though the folder says Texas data, it actually has some Louisiana data in there as well. But Texas by far is the most complete one. But remember too, you can either use my data or you can use your own data from your school district or parish. So either one is fine. So in the zip files or the actual files that I've attached for you, you're going to find data sets and information, and again, or you can use your own. So there are, as I just showed you in Moodle, there are 7 tools that you can use to complete this particular assignment. It starts with tool 1A and goes all the way through tool 7B. Now, there are Word versions of the forms in there, so you can use them if you want to, but you do not have to. Now, if you choose to use these tools, that's great. It'll certainly help you to complete the required template as well as your PowerPoint. And if you want to actually include those in your submission, I will give you extra credit for doing so. But remember, they're not required. So, reading review, as we've talked about, the data plan from Clark County, as well as other attachments. So then you're going to use the template as well as complete it and complete the PowerPoint. And you can see those directions. So when you're doing the PowerPoint, I've given you 10 guiding questions, which should be pretty self-explanatory. So, just tell me, and again, remember, give me specific examples, justify your response in part of that 10 to 16 slide PowerPoint. So you're going to answer the first question, how data analysis and data planning will improve student learning. You should be able to answer that fairly easily based on if you've done all of the readings and pre-work in weeks 1 and 2, as well as the stuff that you have in week 3. So again, they're pretty similar or pretty simple in terms of understanding. So number 2, identify data sources. So just let me know if you're using the Texas data that I provided you for Texas school number 33, that's great. If you're using your own data, say I'm using my data from Airline High School in Bossier Parish, that's fine too. What are processes that would be used? Well, you can reference these tools and talk about that, I used tool number 1 to frame the question, and then I skipped and used tool number 4, how to analyze, and tool number 5, how to interpret. If you have your own district's model or plan, just describe it for me and give me some examples. Okay, so tell me which performance measures and metrics were most useful. So looking at that Texas data, what were the most useful pieces? And it might be the achievement test results for 3rd grade, which comes from the STAR test in Texas. If you're here in Louisiana and you're using your own data, you may say it's the 11th grade results on the Louisiana state assessment in the areas of reading and math were most useful and helpful. Tell me either by analyzing my data or your own school data where it did not meet expectations. So my example from Texas might be that in Texas Elementary 33, 3rd grade reading did not meet expectations because blah, blah, blah. You tell me. Trends, so if you have access to 3 years of data, I know you do in my samples, it's pretty easy to identify trends, and I'll talk more about that here in a minute. Hopefully you have that same data for your school or your district. If you don't, you can just simply say, the only data I have available is for 1 year. I don't have performance data for 3 years, so therefore trends are difficult to analyze. Which challenges, so for example, I've been using 3rd grade reading, so one of my examples may be that African American and low socioeconomic performance on the Texas 3rd grade reading STAR advanced measure has grown on average X number of points, okay? Which data from the data sets are extraneous or not needed. So, if your district gives you a huge amount of data, like I know we did in Dallas, some of that may not be terribly helpful to you, but you just tell me what data you found not useful and justify your response. You may say it was all helpful, that there is no data that was provided that was not needed or helpful. Which of these tools or process would you use? So as a teacher, tell me what you might use, or when you're a campus leader, say, as a campus leader, I'm going to walk my teachers through all of these tools, or I'm going to walk them through these particular ones. Or in my school, we use this data process that we have found very helpful and useful. You can even borrow from some of the stuff I've shared with you and say, we're going to use the data-wise process. That's fine. But just justify your responses here in number 9. Then number 10, what would you add or change? So for example, you may tell me if you're using this model that I've shared with you that, I really found, that I needed to add another tool that really focused on understanding and looking at data trends. So maybe that's not available in my school district, and gosh, we really need to start looking at trend data. Or you may also say that we need to look at, instead of year-to-year data, we need to look at cohort data. So what I mean by cohort data is that students who took the test in 3rd grade are actually now 4th graders. So I maybe need to look at how did 3rd graders do in 2017 compared to the 4th graders, which would be the same students, in 2018. Then I need to look at them as 5th graders in 2019. That would be very helpful. So that may be a piece you want to include there, or whatever you think. But again, particularly with questions 8, 9, and 10, these are your best thoughts. So give us your best thoughts and ideas, as well as be able to provide either an example or justify your response. So that kind of takes care of that element in terms of the directions. So now let's look, and I've already pulled this up as well, at one of the data planning packets. Let me go back to sharing so you can see this. So this is one that I have prepared. I have shared with you guys that you can use if you choose to, but you don't have to. So you'll notice this actually data is a little bit old. It's from 2016. It's elementary 233, and this is for 16-17 planning. So you've got your table of contents, other information here that you can read. But I'm just going to walk you through how you would analyze some of these elements, and we'll do more of this specifically in our Zoom meeting this week. So this is actually for an entire district, so you can see what the enrollment was like across grade level. I'm sorry, for a school. I'm not looking at, I'm looking actually at student data from an elementary school. So the school had 556 students. You can see what grade levels they span. They've got a big second grade. Don't know what's going on with that. A pretty small kinder, so, you know, just thinking ahead, what might that mean for future enrollment as these kids continue to roll up. You can see what the percentages of particular categories are, so at risk, economic disadvantage, etc., as well as it's been broken down by race and ethnicity for you also, not only for students but for teachers. So you say that's all great, wonderful, but maybe that's not my analysis point. So here again is more enrollment information, so you can kind of see what the populations look like. Here it is again over grade level. Here's attendance. Now you may say, again, I'm not particularly interested in attendance, but sometimes attendance data can be very telling for us, as well as continuous enrollment and stability rates. So that at the district level in 2016, only 89.3% of the students stayed continuously enrolled at the same school, whereas at this school it's a little bit better. It's 92.8%. But you may say, oh gosh, look in first grade, only 90.1% stay continuously enrolled. How does that impact achievement? So while you may not do a deep dive analysis, attendance data can be helpful in understanding the context of things when you're trying to identify achievement trends. Again, here's some more information on your teachers. So this is our, in Texas, when they are testing on the state assessment of academic readiness, or the STAR test. In an elementary school, you're only testing grades 3, 4, and 5. They've given us, from this district, you've got performance trends across 3 years, so that is helpful. You can also see how students performed. So a comparison point definitely might be, gosh, what happened with our African American students in 2014 to 2015 when we saw a, what is that? A 20, no, I'm sorry, I can't do math all of a sudden, a 12.5% decrease in their achievement. And gosh, what does this mean here in 2015 when there's a STAR? Well, STAR means there's not enough students that tested that year in grade 3 that were African American to actually provide a score. It's not statistically significant. But why is it in grade 3 I'm seeing a pretty clear trend across 3 years of drops in achievement? Go back here. Maybe it has something to do with my attendance rate. Well, no, it's actually pretty good, 95%. So that may not be the root cause. Could it have something to do with teacher experience? So they have 3 third-grade teachers, and their years, they have a lot of teachers kind of down here on the newer end. They're also only retaining, gosh, look back in 2014, they had 80% of their teachers returned to the school, which is good. But look what happened by 2015-16. Their absences jumped a whole point. They went from an average of 6.9 days to 7.9 days, which is high. And they only retained 64.9% of their teachers. So could that possibly have an impact? You'd have to do some more deep diving, but certainly within the data that it could explain something. So you're going to be looking, as you're going to complete the template, at some of those things. So, you might identify this is a decrease. You might look at, like I said, how many were actually tested. Does that have an impact? What's happening or working well, other places, etc. But, it's simple math. So I went from 87.5 to 75%. So that is a 12.5 decrease. The good news is, like in 4th grade, African Americans, we went from 100% passing to 83.3% passing, but back up to 100. So we're going to look again at the number of students tested, across all. I also might want to compare this to my district averages, which, obviously in this case, the schools, we're doing well above what the district is, so that's a good thing. Then you can again see how many students were tested across these same areas, okay? So this is the number of unsatisfactory, which is basically the students who didn't pass the test. Then you have your students at advanced measures, and maybe that's what you want to look at. How are my students doing on the advanced level, which they consider, slightly on or above grade level, etc. You can also look, it's broken down for you by objectives, so that is very helpful across time, etc. So we'll talk more, as I said in our Zoom meeting, to actually how do you analyze this data and look at it, but that just sort of gives you a taste of what it looks like. Okay, so let me close that out, and now we're going to actually go to the template. So let me do a share again and get you on the template and walk you through it. Okay, so this is the template you're going to complete. There are two parts in the first section. So the first one is progress monitoring. So you'll see here's the learning target. Explain how improvement planning will improve student learning and system effectiveness. What does this mean? So in this instance, I'm going to define what it means. So how will it help us? Well, it's going to identify areas of need and or remediation, as well as areas of mastery. Okay, so that's what that means to me. Then I'm going to rate myself. Well, gosh, I think that I am, pretty proficient at this, obviously, because I, teach it, and I've done this for 35 years. So why did I rate? So this is the why part, why rating. Okay, so right here I'm going to say that I have done and taught data analysis for 20 plus years. I have created data systems for use in a large urban school district. Okay. So that's how I chose that rating. You, on the other hand, might say, gosh, I don't know for sure. Now, let's assume you get to one where maybe you don't know what that means. So a lot of people sometimes struggle with performance trends. So, I might say here, that I don't have trend data available. Hopefully from your data you can tell what the challenges are. We saw in there that, we're outscoring the district, but maybe an area of need in the performance data centers around third grade reading for our at-risk and low SES students. So, I would explain what it means to do those, how I rate myself, and in terms of my reflection, this is the why rating portion of the template, okay? Then you come to data questions for school improvement planning, and you'll notice these are simply guiding questions. You don't have to do anything with them, but what type of data would you need to answer critical planning questions? Well, I've given you what I think you need. There may be other pieces that you want to add, etc., but this is a starting point. So as I showed you in the data packet, we looked at enrollment, attendance, dropout rate, etc. You may, certainly, I think perceptions of the learning environment, what we believe in value is important. You may think those are not. That's fine. There's not necessarily a right or wrong answer when you're using particular data, except it provides context to understanding the data, what it means, and most importantly, getting to the root cause issues. Okay, so you just read through those, think about them. So what is it that you're actually doing? So what have been our trends in performance over time? So for example, I might see that trend data shows an improvement in African American fourth grade reading results on the STAR test. Okay, it should be advanced reading. Let me add that in there. On the STAR test. And how do I know that? That was from my campus data packet, elementary school 2 through 3. Okay? You might put here, actually I should type that, you might put here that, you're using airline data, for airline high school, whatever. Okay, so this is a sample piece. So I'm going to just label that so you guys have a sample. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Like I said, this is not necessarily the answer. It's just a sample piece, and I'll clean this up a little bit more before I post it. What are the most significant weaknesses? Again, why is it what it is? Now, from your data, you may have a great insight and say, you know what, we only had 3 teachers in 4th grade, at elementary school 233, and 2 of them were brand new. So that had a significant impact on why we didn't do as well. So, that's my concern might be here. Reading, what is the root cause? How is it changing over time? So, you may be able to say, we realized that, we did some formative assessment, and it changed and improved, okay? How have we implemented improvement strategies? So tell me what maybe you've either done to improve data or what you think you might need to do. And again, just reference where you're getting this from so that I can look at it and analyze it with you. Okay, then the next one is inventory of performance data sources. So for example, I'm looking at the STAR. I looked at reading. I looked at 3rd graders. These are my advanced measures or scores. And here's my elementary school that I'm looking at. And what would be my other questions? I'd like to see the data broken down by state objective or standard. Okay, so this is just a sample. Do not assume that this is a correct analysis, but I wanted you to kind of see how you would answer this question. So in terms of, honestly, if you look at my data packet, you will see, that there's a ton of data in there. I could do all kinds of analysis. I could fill up probably 5 pages of these, looking across grade levels, assessments, trends, enrollment, attendance. I've observed at this school, so I also know, kind of what their level of implementation is. You don't have to do that. So give me 5 pieces here. So I've given, here's one STAR reading. I may do STAR reading 4th grade, STAR reading 5th grade, STAR math 3rd grade, STAR math 4th grade. And STAR is just the name of the assessment in Texas. You might want to do LEAP results, let's say for grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, reading, math, etc. But I want you to fill in 5 blanks. Okay, so even though you've been given a lot more than that, that's what you can do. So here's another example for you as well. So you have way more blanks than you need, but again, it's just in case you want to use this template on down the road in other endeavors. Again, you probably won't need all of those pages. So you are going to complete this part, planning for the data analysis. So in which indicator areas did the school not meet at least their district expectations? You may or may not have that data. If you use my sample, you did. You can see very clearly that we have that data. You may not have access to it. So what you may want to put here is Airline High School did not meet the 11th grade district average in advanced mathematics. Or you can say we exceeded them all, which would be great. Or you can say this data is not available to me at this time. That's fine. Okay, so it's pretty self-explanatory, particularly when you go through the analysis pieces. I don't think you'll struggle with that too much. So here again is another sample that I did for you. So you can kind of see how this is going to look. And again, remember, these are made up numbers. I didn't actually do the analysis because I want you to. But, for example, I may say that, gosh, in reading, we had a 0.5 average growth on the 3rd grade STAR. We had 80% who scored at the passing rate on the 3rd grade STAR. Whatever it is that you want to see, okay? So again, those are samples for you to look at. Then again, this is almost redundant to what you did before, but it breaks it down just into a little more detail and a little quicker view. So the trend analysis in reading was 3rd grade. I looked at the spring testing results from 2016, and I used the STAR reports just so people know exactly what it is that I looked at. How do I prioritize concerns? So, for example, the who, well, I am targeting my 3rd graders. Okay. 3rd grade, and I'm looking at, just for the sake of the example, low SES students. I'm going to do this during the reading time daily. I'm going to use accelerated rated reader and what am I trying to say? Grouping by mastery standard. Okay, that's the tools and materials I'm going to use. Okay. What are those things that go into SIP stands for School Improvement Plan? So, what would be those trends and priorities I want to make sure make the School Improvement Plan? What are my strengths? How do I apply that criteria? So, for example, gosh, if I'm doing accelerated reader in 3rd grade, maybe that means for the whole school I'm going to do accelerated reader. Okay, so again, just give me some examples. Make sure you tell me who, when it's going to happen, and what you might use to address those from the data analysis. Then you've got a series of 7 questions here that hopefully are pretty easy to answer once you've done all this, because again, it's somewhat redundant. But here is where you're going to write this in paragraph form. You're going to give me some examples, and you're going to justify your particular responses to these questions. Okay, so hopefully that makes it pretty easy for you guys to complete this assignment successfully. So just a couple of key reminders. Number 1, make sure that you are detailed in your responses, in that, you're specific. So, maybe break it down into ethnicity or gender, or you may want to look at different populations of students. If you're a gifted and talented teacher, I'm going to be really interested in gifted and talented. How did those students do? Did they all perform at advanced levels? If they didn't, which students didn't and why? So you can really customize this to your area. Particularly if you're using your own data. If I'm a special needs student, teacher, I teach in special education, I want to look at my students. And then how do they compare to the general population, or how do they compare to the district average for special needs students? But again, it's really about targeting and focusing when you're analyzing this data. And then when you go to answer the more open-ended type questions, make sure you're doing it in a paragraph format and provide examples and justifications for your responses. And if you do all that, you should do really well. So I will do a Q&A at the end of our Zoom meeting this week to answer any specific questions that you have. But I hope you guys find this helpful and beneficial. Thanks.